Let's go!
Did you see the Nomura Twitter explanation for the box art for Rebirth? I did. I won it over, and it did seem like some Nomurian texts were having to be translated. Some crazy explanation about something with other worlds and stuff like that in FF7 coming from Nomura directly. Hang on a second. We could try to translate this in weird, non-confirmed story speak. You gotta understand, right, that all of the weird speculative nonsense that we've been talking about, Sephiroth is essentially Biff Tannen from Back to the Future 2, all this weird stuff, you know, Aerith is dead in Zack's timeline. People are like, dude, I played FF7 Remake and I have no idea what the hell you're talking about. And it's, again, a situation where, yeah, a lot of the theory crafters and even myself looking between the edges of the Nomurian texts in Final Fantasy VII Remake, although he didn't even write it. It's now seeming that they are spoon feeding us little bits and little more bits. So let's take a look at this. By the way, I was at the FF7 Remake play event, and I remember seeing this image for the first time. This was like a week before Tokyo Game Show-ish or something like that. And I snapped a picture of it because I was kind of like shocked by the imagery. Because again, you have to realize all of this artistic imagery, when these people are artists and they're making something and promoting something, they are setting up for a something very specific. So I saw this image and I was like, wow, that's kind of striking. And it isn't striking just for the fact that, you know, Cloud, Sephiroth, and Zack, it's the framing of it, it's the color visuals of it, it's the fact that there is burning fire on the ground and like meteor is being summoned in the air. So there's like a lot of stuff going on here, like artistically, that they're trying to convey that is already fueling the goofy Back to the Future 2 Sephiroth brain, monkey brain that I have from beating FF7 Remake and the Integrate expansion thing, right? Intermission. So, created by Nomura himself, this artwork represents the three worlds that form the axis of the story. Wow! Wow! That form the axis of the story in FF7 Rebirth. Sephiroth at the center, as he represents the instigator of the events of the past. What? So this, what? Just say it. Now they're just cooking. And now they just like added some kerosene. They're like, yeah, start burning that shit. Anyway, practically confirming, yeah, Sephiroth is Biff Tannen, going back to the past to manipulate stuff. So let's read this slowly. The artwork represents the three worlds, the FF7 Remake world, technically OG Final Fantasy VII, where Sephiroth technically comes from, right? And he's now manipulating these new worlds. And the brand new world that Zack somehow exists in, an alternate reality through Sephiroth's meddling and events through time and space and all of this wacky stuff. For anybody that is super confused right now, I don't blame you. I'm going to try to brush you up really quick on the goofy events that happened at the end of FF7 Remake and why it is hard to make sense of it, but it is teased throughout the whole game. FF7 Remake is essentially a sequel. The remake term of FF7 Remake is not referring to the game's contents. It's referring to the motivations of a character to remake things. That character is Sephiroth, and it's pretty clear after a little bit of introspection through the first playthrough of FF7 Remake and after it's over, that Sephiroth knows way too much. And he's around in places he shouldn't be around. It's not a retelling. No. This is completely opposite of a retelling. It's also obvious that other characters in the story, like Aerith, are hyper aware of the situation, what's going on, and what's going to happen in the future. It's completely different than the original game. And then there's other things like Cloud literally getting visions of what happens in the OG games, and also technically like Advent Children but not what happens here. Red 13 also has some weird visions too. So anyway, the gimmick of the situation is that yes, Final Fantasy VII has become multiversed in some way, where what we played in FF7 Remake is essentially a manipulation of Sephiroth coming back from the future, potentially a post-Advent Children future, and trying to change things the way that they were, trying to become the winner, because he eventually he does not end up winning. But in turn doing that causes some weird funk in the fact that destiny doesn't exist anymore. You kill the plot ghosts, the time Janies, and now because of it, Zack exists, and he exists somewhere, but we don't know where, and they're being super coy about that shit, right? They're incredibly coy about how the hell does Zack exist in some place? What the hell is going on? So that's me clearing this up. With that perspective, the artwork represents those three worlds that form the axis of the story of FF7 Rebirth, where Sephiroth is obviously in the center, manipulating everything, and he represents the instigator of the events of the past, kind of just directly acknowledging that, yeah, Sephiroth is screwing with stuff. It does sound confusing, right? And to be honest, I don't blame you. It sounds confusing if you don't have perspective of the original Final Fantasy VII. So, to follow that up, this is only 2 posts. Cloud and Zack are on the side as they represent their destinies being torn apart by Sephiroth. The image of blood, fire, and red that evokes Sephiroth stains the sky and spreads over the world. The subtle red shade in the logo is also inspired from the same imagery. And yeah, like, yeah, if you look at this and have no perspective, it's just a cool poster. But again, looking at this with a little bit of perspective of where the hell they're going with this story and like what Sephiroth is, what the hell has he become? He's this thing that just like exists through time now, and he's gone back and he's effing with Cloud further than ever, right? And as a result of it, Zack is alive. So I think what they're pitching here is, again, a story that is going to be very similar to FF7 OG. I think we're going to be still going to a lot of the places as the OG, but even they have admitted several times, things are going to be mixed around, boyo. Like, they're not going to be going at things in the exact same order. It's going to help complement the story that exists in Rebirth, right? Where they're going to be going with this thing. The big question I have is that we get it, right? Yes. Further confirmation of this, everyone said we were drunk and high and or drunkenly high at the same time. I understand. It was a stretch to hear all of this stuff and to buy into it. But for some reason I love it. Right? For some reason, this is so much more interesting than them just pitching the exact same game, playing in the exact same events and the exact same order again. I don't know what the hell, how does Sephiroth achieve this? What the hell is his end goal now? How the hell does he technically exist? Like, what the hell is going on? There's also been some very interesting translation stuff about it continuing directly into Advent Children, but that doesn't, I don't know if that translation came across as him saying, yes, Advent Children is right after this, you should watch that. Like, it seemed kind of weird the way that was translated. So I don't know, but it still seems like Advent Children and its events are technically related to the story of FF7 Remake as well as FF7 Rebirth. I don't need to take the credit for this. I think it's actually just awesome that there is a huge mystery to this story. And as I said earlier, they're aware of that mystery. The promotional material, Nomura said literally he was the guy that designed the poster, and then, you know, in-house art departments made this thing. He's been the guy that is like, oh, how much do we tease? People obviously know this stuff, so how much do we actually tease with, like, Nojima, like the script writers, like everybody? Where do we place all these things? And I think they've done a good enough job where the translation of the Nomurian text has gone pretty well, because even somebody that played through FF7 Remake and saw all this stuff between the cracks, this poster gave a lot of information, and it was like, whoa. I'm kind of excited to see where the hell they're going to go with this story and how they are going to present this information along the way. And again, when can you look forward to that in Remake? I'm sorry, Rebirth? Bugenhagen's going to be a huge part of the story. And to be frank, if you look at all of the menu items in FF7 Rebirth, if you look at all of the interface accoutrements that they have, there is nothing but weird interstellar constellation stuff. how planets move and how they move in relation to our galaxy and our universe and all that kind of stuff, or the characters therein. That's all over the menus, dude. Constantly. There's space stuff everywhere in the menus, all over the place. And then also even in the Temple of the Ancients, that the characters seemingly are just like sitting idle on when you press pause in Rebirth. It's all over the walls and stuff like that. Constellation and maps and diagrams. It's like, wow. All this reminds me of, what is the visual imagery this reminds you of? Bugenhagen. You got me excited, man. All right, I wasn't completely on board with the Kingdom Hearts stuff, right? And I know that Nomura was the big writer of those games and the director. But FF7 as a series, right, FF7 Remake, is split between a lot of different governing parties, and the game is being written by the original writer, right? Also is produced by the original director. They have new directors in-house and all this kind of stuff. So it's nice to see that there is a lot of hands involved in making a huge game like this, and completely outside of the gameplay things, which honestly excite me the most, right? True, no Sakaguchi, you're right. You're right, he's been gone for a while. All I gotta say is that you can likely expect a complete 1 to 2 month sub mode on my Twitch channel. You likely can expect a full lengthy sub mode for the span of 2 months, that I'll be doing everything I'll be cutting myself off from the waking world just so I can naturally have this shit hit me in the face and the information be presented to my brain for the first time. I'm going to be working aggressively towards that.